it for 3 years now in one of our courses, Exercise and Sports Psychology. And Dr. Porter lives in Oregon. It's not Oregon. I learned today it's Oregon. She called 6 semesters in a row and had a class over the phone with our students. And the students liked that a great deal. And her personality came through. The book is wonderful. Always get excellent feedback on the book. And it occurred to me that, boy, it would be nice to get Dr. Porter here. And Dr. Porter is here. She's an eminent sports psychologist, has worked with a number of elite athletes. Most recently, Eugene, Oregon is the center, the heaven, I guess, for runners. And I believe the Olympic trials were held there prior to the 2008 Olympics. They'll be held again. In that process, Dr. Porter has had the opportunity to work with a number of elite runners. So she has a varied background in sports psychology, and she's a very personable individual, and I want you to enjoy and ask a lot of questions.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So thanks for coming. I'm really, he was saying, I don't know how many people are going to come. There may be 5, or there may be 50, or there may be 100. So here you are. So thanks. And I'm sort of curious. I always like to. I have a lot of things that I can talk about, and I'm always curious to sort of know, not exactly who the people are that come, but why they're here. And so I'm going to ask you a few questions. If you could just raise your hands about different things. First of all, how many are coaches? Okay. Okay. How many are athletes? Great. How many of you are here because of why? If you're not an athlete or a coach.
Parents of young athletes.
Parents, right. How many parents of athletes? Sorry. Good. I'm going. All right. So I'm sort of curious to know what the different sports are that people are playing or doing. And so swimming, running, soccer. Okay, start naming things. Baseball. How many baseball? Oh, quite a few. Okay. Volleyball. Talk to the basketball people today. Okay, a couple there. What else? I mean, there's plenty. Just name them out for me. Swimming? Okay. Lacrosse. How many people lacrosse? Okay. Sorry? Rowing. Yeah, crew or individual rowing. How many rowing? Okay. What else? Tennis. What else? I just like to know who's here, honestly. I'll never remember your names, but I want to know who's represented. What other kind of sports are there that skiing? Alpine skiing, anybody? Snowboarding? Okay.
How many people
What else?
are here who were in the class in which we read Dr. Porter's book? Did you see a show of hands there? You have a very good following there.
Pastor Preston, okay. What other sports that I haven't asked about that I need to know? Field hockey, thank you. How many field hockey? Okay, ice hockey? Okay. So I want to know why you're here. What are your expectations? I mean, one of the things is that I'm going to answer questions, but some of you all are too shy to talk about it or ask anything. Do you want, how many want sort of rudimentary sort of explanation of what might be in the book a little bit? Anybody? Okay. And what else do you want? I mean, words of wisdom, I'm sure. But I want to hit where you want to, whatever it is that you want. So what are your expectations for being here?
I'd like to know your suggestions for overcoming negativity.
Suggestions for overcoming negativity. Great. What else? I can start with that. How many of you all have actually either have a copy of the book or read it? And reading it by osmosis, putting it under your pillow at night. It's going in, I can see it now. Okay. The book basically is a very come back with that question again because I may space it out because I'll start talking about stuff, but I want to sort of build a little platform here. The book is a very applied sports psychology book. Even though it's being used in his class, it's how to. It's what you can do about your sport. It's how to visualize. It's how to stop negative self-talk in your head. It's how to be a better person, a better athlete, a better performer at any level, whether it's standing in front of a group and talking to 50 people or whether it's applying it to your sport. And the last chapter in the book is mental training for peak performance in life, because that's what it's all about anyway, is just, doing the best that you can and being the best you can be, for me. I mean, that's sort of part of the purpose of it. So the 5 original steps of the mental training process are something called a mental log, goal setting, affirmations, visualization, relaxation and visualization. So those are the 5 basic premises, okay? And when I'm working with athletes, and it really doesn't even matter how old they are, and I work with kids as young as 8 or 10, they don't read the book usually, but they can still, use some of the things that I teach people. And so we work individually with their issues, whatever they are. I work on the telephone with people. I work in person with people. And I've worked with a lot of different sports. And as I was telling his class this morning, I want you to guess there's only one sport that people from that sport ever ask me if I play the game. Want to guess what it might be? Not football. Obviously not. Well, actually, I'm originally from Texas, so I did play football. Almost got my teeth knocked out one time I didn't know how to fall. And it's very hard ground there. No. Guess again. Yeah. Not track. I'm a runner. Oh, you don't know much about me. Okay, let me tell you a little bit. I ran a lot. It's actually golf. Okay. Golfers say, well, if you don't know how to play golf, then you really don't understand. Well, yes, I do. I played in my 20s and I hated it. And when I turned 70 or 75, then I'll probably take it up again. It was really the most frustrating thing I ever did. So, and I had no patience when I was in my 20s, and so, but I can help golfers. And I work with a lot of them, actually. Usually at country clubs and places like that. But it's fun. I enjoy it. And they get a lot out of it, too. But anyway, about me, I was a tennis player in high school and college. I played varsity. It was so long ago that I don't even think Division I was invented, but maybe it was. I have no idea. But I really know firsthand the thing about mental blocks and making mistakes and being down on yourself and all that. And then I ran for about 30 years. I ran Masters Track. They have, for people over 35, they have, and I started running before that, but anyway, they have age group competitions, and so I know a lot about track, and obviously since I live in Eugene, Oregon, I worked with a zillion runners, and 800 meters, sprinters, you name it, and I love that. I mean, it's really one of my passions is track and field, but I've worked with a lot of other athletes too. Equestrian, all sorts of different odd things. Even somebody from Ireland who was a professional, what was he? Poker player or something like that. I mean, I was stunned when somebody sent me an email and wanted to do mental training about playing poker, but they play I guess, for a long time. So it's all in the mental thing, and it's taking care of yourself and doing all these things. So it's these concepts can be applied to anything. So getting back to your question about, and say it again, please.
Your
Yes, tips
tips for dealing with negativity.
for dealing with negativity. Okay. Do you pay any attention to what you say to yourself when you're at any time, whether you're competing, whether you're talking to your partner? I mean, are you conscious of what you say to yourself in your mind at all? Uh-huh. Say what? Not always. Not always. Well, one of the things when we're in a sport, if we make a mistake, what do we say? Oh, you're so stupid. Oh, you suck. Oh, blah, 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 whatever it is. We say horrible things. We don't even say them out loud a lot of times, but they're in here. And so part of the purpose of this book and the work that I do is to go inside and help people look at, the mental log is the first step in this, because if you're not conscious of what you are saying to yourself, within 24 hours after your competition, whether you're an individual athlete or a team athlete, write down, and the book has this stuff in it, write down exactly what you said to yourself. When you did well, what did you say to yourself? When you did poorly, what did you say to yourself? That creates a consciousness inside of your brain, so you think, whoa, I said all that? I mean, and within 24 hours, you're going to be able to remember what it was. So what I do with those, when people write those down or tell me what they are, and sometimes it's just an interview that I do with somebody and I'm taking notes, I take that and I say, okay, let's work on this. And, excuse me, if it is negative stuff, I can see exactly what it is. And then what we do is we work with that to change that mind talk first, to change it to a positive thing. The other thing that I do with people when they're, I don't know how to say this exactly, but for instance, if somebody's in a game and they make a mistake, how long do you think about that mistake in that game? Do you just notice you made it and then keep on going, or do you go, and think about it for 5 minutes, how you screwed up, right? How long does it, I mean, the question is, how long does it take you to let go of a mistake? 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, 5 days, It's creating a consciousness here. And so when I'm working with somebody who has trouble dealing with negativity, these are the questions that I ask. And so the deal is how I get them to do that. I mean, the whole idea, and that this is one of the premises in the mental athlete, is to, if you make that mistake, let it go and refocus. And so those are some of the key words. I mean, these aren't really affirmations, but they're things that you can say to yourself. If you miss a pass or whatever, I mean, whatever you've done, you just mentally go, let it go, and then you refocus. And I actually teach people something called energy psychology, which is a very new field, and it's not taught in universities or anything, and it's sort of unusual stuff, but I teach them how to refocus in a physical way. And it's based on, I mean, it's a little weird, but it's cutting edge sports psychology, okay? Just like the goals, affirmations, and visualizations 20 years ago were cutting edge. That's old hat now. Everybody talks about it. This new stuff is cutting edge in sports psychology now, and it's bizarre looking, I want to tell you. But you can just also just say, let it go, and you refocus, because the entire thing about when you're playing is to stay in the moment. And as a tasking group of people that we've all become, I mean, we're listening to our iPods and we're texting and we're, talking on the phone. I mean, you're doing all zillions of things at once, okay? And the thing about sports is, I mean, you are doing a lot of things at once, but you really need to be there now, right? When you're out there on the field, you can't be spacing out. You have to be paying attention. You have to be following the ball, or if you do make a mistake, you're in the past and you don't want to be there. And so you have to let go of whatever screw up that you just did and refocus. You refocus on, getting the ball back, going after the ball, whatever you're doing, but you have to stay in the moment of the game. And that's one of the hardest things for people to do once they make a mistake. And so the thing is, giving up that constant, for many of us, negative self-talk that we just say automatically. It's a habit. I mean, maybe you were raised with somebody who was telling you were stupid all your life. I mean, I don't know. But you can overcome that. You don't have to become that person. You don't have to believe it. And there's all the stuff about in the literature and stuff about, you know, what you see is what you get, but I mean, there's what in sports, in psychology, what we call it is self-fulfilling prophecy. And so if somebody tells you that you're stupid long enough, then you're going to start to believe them. But you don't have to. I mean, you have to, you know, you can either do it yourself or you can get coaches and other people that believe in you and who encourage you and so forth, and you can overcome that stuff. Or, I mean, I've worked with a lot of kids where some of the runners that I worked with in the past, fabulous runners at a young age, and they were doing it to "I'll show you," you know, and that's cool. I mean, whatever it takes for you to beat somebody, I mean, I'll show you. But you get to a certain age, and then you don't have to prove that anymore, and so the power that was driving that motivation for the sport disappears, and so they're done, you know, and they want to be done a lot of times, but we can change that. We do not have to believe what people tell us if they're telling us that we're not worthy and we're not good enough. We don't have to take that. And that's what this book is about, at the sports level, basically. And so when I work with an individual athlete, I work with teams, but when I work with an individual athlete, I do this whole athlete protocol with them. And we talk about their pre-game routine. We talk about if they are, you know, like in basketball or whatever, a pre-shot routine, like but in golf also. But we talk about how do you get ready to hit the ball, or how do you get ready to pitch, or how do you get ready to throw a free throw? How do you do these things? And so I pick their brains, and then we work on how to do that in a positive way, okay? What else? I sort of lost my train of thought. The athlete protocol, because I think this is important, and this is what through reading the book you can get a lot of these ideas. Oh, the pre-competition routine. The second thing is breathing. Now, one of the things that happens, and there are certain things that happen that are sort of common among all sports, and this is, people wonder how I can work with all these different sports and not know that much about the sport, but I'm very skillful at interviewing people to find out exactly what's important to them in that sport and technique-wise and so forth. But I'm not doing the technique stuff. I'm doing what they're doing in their head, you know, and changing that. And so one of the things that I'm able to do is sort of figure out where somebody's coming from, and the first thing that I teach them how to do is breathe. Because when we get scared, when we get angry, we hold our breaths, no matter who you are. I mean, when you're angry, if you're in touch with your body, and sometimes you are, sometimes you're not, because you're usually just so angry, it's like, you know, but if you actually are conscious enough to go, where am I feeling this in my body? Usually it's your solar plexus. It's like, you know, because you're subconsciously, physically getting ready for somebody to sucker punch you in the stomach. So this is our solar plexus, and so I teach people how to breathe down into here and out of here. And before, if I'm throwing a free throw shot or something like that, and I'm doing my whole little, you know, palming the ball and doing everything else that I do before I shoot a free throw, then I also have to remember to breathe. And when you do that, it relaxes your muscles. You don't even have to tell yourself to relax, but you're just doing that, and then, okay. The other thing, like, and this is just one little example for basketball, for example, in free throw shooting, you can just do it in your mind. You literally sit in a chair, because if you lie down, you go to sleep, usually. Even if it's for 2 minutes, you sit in a chair and you visualize yourself being in your own body, seeing out of your own eyes. You visualize yourself on the foul line, and you visualize yourself doing your thing, and then you visualize the ball going right into the basket. And there's research, some of the original sports psychology research showed that people who practiced the visualization and actually practiced the skills had the highest percentage of free throw shooting. So it works, and you can do that for anything. I mean, if you're really nervous, you know, standing in front of a group, how many of you would have a really hard time standing up here and talking? You know how scary that is? Not for me, because I do it all the time, but, you know, standing up in front of a group and speaking is supposedly the #1 fear. Death is fourth, okay? So, who knows? That was an old study. I don't know whether it's still true or not, but you can use this stuff for anything, and you mentally prepare yourself. And so you run your breathing. I mean, you breathe out of here, or you breathe out of a space from Tai Chi, you know, the martial art and stuff. Tai Chi, the Chi area is 2 inches below the navel, and when you breathe into the solar plexus or the Chi area, then it gets you in your body and out of your head. And I gave this example in class today, and it's, I skied for a really long time until I got real serious about running. But anyway, I would stand up at the top of Mount Bachelor, the first run, and I'd look down and go, oh no, I'm going to die. You know, it'd be nasty and slick and everything. And what I would do is this was my pre-routine, I would breathe into the Chi area, actually, because I'd been taking Tai Chi, and so I'd breathe in there, and then I'd think, attack the hill. And but what it did is when I breathed into that Chi area, it put me in my body and out of my brain, and I was in my body, and then I just thought, attack the hill, and I would just take off, and I never fell or anything like that. So it's just what you can do, and the same thing, you know, before you go into a competition, you can do stuff like that. It's really important. But the #1 thing is building a consciousness in yourself of what you say to yourself. And you know that you would not say to your best friend what you say to yourself, right? Most of us. So I want to take some questions of what you want, what do you want to know? I mean, maybe you just wanted an overview, but what kind of individual questions can I help you with? Any kind. Yeah.
Could you go more in depth with the energy psychology?
Oh, sure. The energy psychology. It has to do with breathing and blinking. It's very weird. But okay, we all have this, we're alive, right? And so we all have this electromagnetic energy field around us, because when we're alive, and living things do have that. I mean, and so what happens when we lose our confidence, usually the electromagnetic field around us, and they can, you know, measure this and so forth, it's usually, you know, a foot or two around, all the way around, okay? When we get scared, when we get angry, well, angry maybe it goes out farther, but when we get scared, it sort of shrinks. And so we're not feeling confident. And so what we can do is actually breathe and visualize, and when you breathe out of the solar plexus or that Chi area, you can actually blow that up a little bit. And so you feel more confident because you're actually pushing your energy out a little bit. Okay? I mean, you can, we're very sensitive individuals. You can go into a room and you can feel if somebody's been really angry, I mean, if somebody's having a fight, even if they're not saying anything, you can feel the vibe, right? We're very sensitive about things like this, only we never think about them. They're nonverbal cues, basically. And so we don't think about that. But anyway, so we all have these electromagnetic fields. We can control them by breathing, either, you know, out of here or out of here. There are things called, let's see, how do I describe this? I teach this to every single athlete that I work with. There's something called a daily energy routine. And there's something, oops, sorry, bang, bang, bang on the recording. There are different places on your body that you can tap to calm yourself. And so I teach people how to use that. There are, between your fourth and fifth finger, right in here, between the bones that are going to your knuckles, there's a little spot in there, and you can either rub it or you can tap it. And if you're feeling upset, you can rub that or tap it, and that relaxes you. There's tons. If you go on the internet and you look up energy psychology, there's a lot of books about this. There's tapping for this and tapping for that. So that's one of the places that you can actually relax yourself. Now, one of the other things that I teach people, besides the breathing, is this very weird refocusing technique. You cannot do this on the field. Number one, it looks stupid and weird. And number two, you might fall down. And do not do that while you're driving either. And if you download any of the guided visualizations off of the website, do not listen to them when you're driving. Thank you very much. They say that already, but still. So this refocusing technique, if you have all this stuff in your head and you're trying to get rid of it, this is what you do. And it's based on rapid eye movement, which is a sleep cycle. And when we're asleep, we actually blink. Even though our eyes are closed, we're blinking. And what that's doing is releasing negative material from the day. It just relaxes, it's just getting rid of trauma, basically. So you can consciously use this stuff for refocusing. And I'll show you what it is. And then, because your little minds, you're spacing out, you're listening to me, you're thinking about what am I going to do afterwards. I mean, you're thinking about a lot of different things. So when I lead you through this, I want you to notice how your state of mind changes, okay? So how it is and how many people have contacts on? Contacts? Be very gentle doing this, because I don't want you to pop them out or pop them in the back of your head or back of your eye. So anyway, it's just a very rapid little blinking of about 4 or 5 times. And it's sort of hard to blink and talk at the same time too, like that. So you blink, and then you do what I call tight open. So those with your contacts, be very careful, but basically tight open is sort of squeezing your eyes shut, opening them wide, squeezing them shut, open them wide. You do that 3 or 4 times. Then you take 3 deep breaths through the nose and out through the mouth. And then you can either take your finger and you can watch it, you keep your head straight, or you can just look across the room from side to side. And what each one of these things does is the blinking releases what you're thinking about, the tight open releases what you're thinking about, the breathing just makes you breathe, just to oxygenate your system, and the side to side looking balances your left and right brain. And when you do this, so let me lead you through it, okay? So the first thing is blinking quickly, very quickly, 4 or 5 seconds, 4 or 5 times. Then the tight open, except for those with contacts. Then you do it gently. Then 3 deep breaths through the nose and out through the mouth. And then keep your head straight and then look side to side. Now see, you feel weird, right? I feel weird. Am I dizzy? Maybe. But that's how you remove that stuff that you're not wanting to think about. You get it out of your head. Now you have to be careful with it. Like, you can't be running down the basketball court doing that. First of all, they're going to throw you off the team because you're being strange. And second of all, you might run into somebody or fall down or something. So, but anyway, you can do that. And you can do it, I tell my athletes, go to the restroom or turn your back or whatever, do it in quiet. Or, when nobody else is looking at you. But it changes your state of mind, which is what I want people to do. And that's the refocusing technique. I even taught it to a bunch of lifeguards for in Eugene. This guy had me do a training on refocusing, because as a lifeguard, you sit there and you're just like, when nothing's happening, you're about to die of boredom and go to sleep. So that kept them awake, but it also stimulated their brains so they could be more alert. So, other questions? Long answers to short questions. Yeah, no, you're just scratching your eye. Okay, what else?
Like fatigue athletes that get to like overtime for basketball or something like that. Do you have any?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the
for,
front.
like, sporting events like hockey, they go into overtime, or basketball in overtime.
Yes.
They're starting to get fatigued. Do you have any recommended techniques for getting
For-
their mind for that when they're fatigued?
Their minds or their energy, physical energy or what?
More like energy levels, because they've already hit like their 1 hour
Right, yes,
operating time and they're starting to get tired.
yeah. I mean, I'm not a inspirational speaker, okay? That's sort of not what I do, but as a good coach or a coach, you need to really inspire these people and help them. And I mean, and you have, if you're working with a team, you have team leaders, and you need to talk to them and work with them, so you guys can do this when you need it. So. I would take the 2 or 3 team leaders and I would have a little brainstorming session of just, okay guys, what are we going to do for these 4 or 5 things? And you can also do, or 4 or 5 minutes overtime or whatever, this overtime when we're really tired. Give me your ideas. So you brainstorm with the team leaders. You also, you can have, if you all ever have team meetings, okay, this is one of our issues. When we go into overtime, what are we going to do about it? And you and you can ask each individual athlete, what's going to work for you if this happens? What can we do to help you? And what's going to work for you? So you get it individually, and then you have them brainstorm, what can we do as a team to get ourselves up again? I mean, use your resources, because they're huge resources. And one of the things I talk about with my athletes all the time and I'm not a nutritionist at all, I promise you, but about why people bonk and hydration and all that. And it's like making sure that they get enough water. I mean, there's some wonderful electrolyte things called Sharkies and shot blocks and stuff like that long distance runners use. And, sometimes they just, and I don't know whether Gatorade's good or not. I mean, it's like too much sugar probably, but this stuff has electrolytes in it, and so when people sweat, they lose potassium and sodium and everything, and these little electrolyte chewies and things like that give you energy. And you can be bonking big time, I mean, like in running in a race, in a marathon, and if you drink some water and you eat one of those, it gives you enough blood sugar where you can keep going, and so sometimes that's what the problem is. But other times it's psyching them up again and inspiring them. But pick their brains to see what's going to work for them. That's really important. So I don't know how many people use electrolyte stuff. Also, I think that as coaches, it's really important, I mean, you have to be careful that you don't feed them too much where they're going to throw up, okay? If they're running hard and doing all this stuff. But it's like, I think that one of the things that happens with athletes, and especially college athletes or high school athletes, is that they don't get enough protein. And they need protein as well as the carbos to sustain that blood sugar level that's in a, if you eat too many carbos and not enough protein, your blood sugar goes up, and then the insulin comes in and your blood sugar goes, and that's why people bonk. So you need to sort of pay attention to the physical aspects too. Other questions? What else? Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to a young athlete dealing with, say, a coach that works on negative feedback?
Well,
Not directed to any.
yeah, I know. We do visualizations around when the negative stuff is coming toward him or her, imagining and visualizing being a duck, not an Oregon duck, but a duck, where it's just rolling off of them, because that's really hard. And the younger the kid is, the harder it is, because he or she wants to please the coach, So sometimes it's just that. And I ask him, what is it that he says, or he or she says to you? And then we work on affirmations around that. But it's really hard. I mean, they're so sensitive, and they're so young, and they're so sort of innocent that it just goes in deep a lot of times. So that's working with that. That's what I would do. And I would have, I know there's both sides. I mean, if you're the coach, you don't want all these parents trying to influence how you're coaching, but yet the parents do have to give the coach feedback and say this is not acceptable, you know, and find somebody else if they can. Or if it's the high school coach or the college coach, you know, somebody needs, the athletic director needs to have a little talk with them and stuff like that. I've actually, one of the teams I worked with, basketball team, eventually the coach resigned because it's really interesting. The coaching is so different now than it used to be. The athletes are different, they're raised different, and so that old nastiness doesn't work so much anymore, or very well anymore. It's really hard on the people. And the kids are not the same kids that, maybe it never worked, I don't know. Maybe people just dropped out and that was it, you know, but something has to be done about it, I think. And when I'm working individually, I mean, I work with exactly how it's affecting the kid and work with that. Other questions? Yeah.
There's a certain amount of stress in athletes' life, all athletes' lives. Some of it is self-imposed that they bring on themselves. Some of it, a lot of it from outside factors. Do you look at that differently? Do you handle it differently? Do you, when you're talking to
Work with the stress with individual athletes? Yes, I do. I mean, you know, if usually that's not the presenting issue that they bring, but it is important to be able to teach them how to relax a little bit, and it's hard for them to relax, really. But I believe in teaching people and helping people to take time for themselves and know that it's okay to go to the movies, you know, once a week with somebody or whatever, just to have some downtime from their heads. And with student athletes at the collegiate level, it's really hard, you know, because you guys have a really hard time. I mean, you're doing a lot of stuff, you know, and the sport is like a full-time job plus your school. So I think it's really important to, well, in this venue, of course, it would be praying. But I think it's important to learn, if you want to learn how to meditate, and that means just maybe sitting out for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, if the sun happens to be shining, and breathing and just letting the warmth of the sun be on you. I mean, just stopping for, you know, 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, longer would be better, but I mean, some people are only willing to do 5 or 10. So just to find a way for the body to sort of semi-relax. And the stress reduction stuff that I do is a lot about the energy psychology too, of the blinking, and then there's a bunch of other stuff I teach people that I'm not going to go into tonight. It's actually something called a daily energy routine that's taught, or it's in a book called Energy Medicine by Donna Eden, and it's a bunch of tapping and breathing. It's about 7 steps of that, and that's very relaxing, and it gets you calmer, and we're affected a lot of the times by people we're around. We pick up their vibes, their energy, whatever you want to call it, and I think it's very important for us to learn how to be in our own physical energy. And so I work, since I see I mean, I'm a therapist, so I see people all the time. I have to make sure I don't pick up their energy, you know, so I do all of these things that I teach people myself, to be in my own body and in my own psychological energy state. So if they're depressed, I don't get it, you know. I have to be myself. And I do physical exercise. You know, I used to run all the time. Now I walk, and I coach people to walk marathons. You know, I'm saving my knees, what's left of them, from my 7 marathons that I did run. And I practice just about everything I preach, honestly. It's really important, I think.
Thanks.
Yeah. Other questions? Yes?
What would be your advice on dealing with pain during cross country?
The pain in cross country at what mile? For, let's see, what is it? 6K, so how far is that? 6 times, 3.6 miles, right? So the pain comes at 3 miles maybe, or is it 2.5? Yeah. For running, and where do you feel the pain in your body? Everywhere. But lungs or solar plexus or legs or? Legs, okay. Running is, even though you're running fast, it has a long enough, unless you're a sprinter, it has a long enough time where you can actually do ornate visualizations. So one of the, I have in the body, in the book, there's a thing about body checking. And when you're running, and if your particular parts are hurting, you do a body check. And so when you are running, you check and you start at the top of the head, and you notice your eyes are might, or so you maybe blink a little, once or twice, just to relax your eyes. Then you notice your mouth. Am I running like this? Then you relax your mouth. Then you notice and so you're doing this body check. How's my neck? Okay. How are my shoulders? Am I running like this? Probably, because I'm getting tired, and so I, try and use my shoulders to run. So you drop your shoulders, you relax your shoulders. Am I clenching my muscles too much in my arms? If I am, relax those. And you go back to form, basically, but you're checking your body to see where the tension is. Where I used to feel it in a race would be right in my solar plexus. It'd get really tight. And I would notice I'd be breathing way up in here. So I would focus on breathing down through the solar plexus, and that really helped me. As far as the legs are concerned, you can do little visualizations about, and it sounds ridiculous, but it works when you're running. You imagine sending like gold light or green light or whatever kind of light you want to send into your quads. You can imagine strings on because you're always supposed to, when we're near an end of a race and we get tight, we shorten our stride, so we usually want to lengthen our stride some. But you can actually visualize little strings pulling your legs up, because you're trying to pull your knees up to have better form. So you do that whole thing. And then if there's somebody in front of you and they're fairly close, then you can play a game of, okay, so you sort of work up to that person and you run behind them and psych them out for a little while just because you're right on them. And then you blow by them for about 50 yards. And that will give you energy. It takes your mind off of the pain. Now, I was telling the class this morning, Alberto Salazar, when he's a coach now, and he's coaching a lot of the top athletes in the country in long distance. When he years ago ran New York Marathon more than once, but they asked him, one of the reporters asked him, what were you thinking about that last half mile? And he said, I was thinking about making the guy behind me hurt more than I did. And I read that and went, whoa, that's intense. But it worked for him, So sometimes we do that. We try and punish the people behind us. Now, I would have never thought of that. But, sometimes you can think about what you're going to do afterwards. And that isn't being in the moment, but it's like the little wonderful things that you're going to do. And you promise your body, if you get me through this, I will get you a massage, or I will put you in the hot tub, or whatever. But you have to follow through, because, that's a promise you're making to your body, and you have to honor that. So that's a long answer too, but anyway, that's what comes to mind. Yeah.
The comment you just made, and I know you're from Oregon and a runner, so I'm sure you probably have a lot of background understanding on Steve Prefontaine. The comment you made about, like, I want to make the other person, like, feel more pain than I do, makes me think of.
Mm-hmm.
I've read a lot and watched movies on Steve Prefontaine, and I don't know if you could just maybe share with everybody a little bit of, like, the psychology behind his mindset in running, and any information that you have, because I think that he has an awesome attitude as an athlete.
He did, and he also had these great gifts. I actually was around when he was running. I never met him personally, but I stood around and watched him and listened to him a lot when he was around. And the guy had an incredible gift. He had the largest lungs and the greatest VO2 max that you can imagine. It was huge. He's a little sort of bandy-legged guy. He was probably about 5'7" or 8" or something, and he's sort of bow-legged, but he had this huge chest. And he had a pain tolerance. I don't know what he did, and nobody ever interviewed him for anything like that. but he either did not feel the pain or he had such a huge pain tolerance that it wasn't a problem. But he did say things like that. Like a couple of the quotes are things to the effect of, I don't run to see who's going to win, I run to see who has the most guts. Stuff like that, you know, so, and he only lived to be 24, I think it was, or 25, and so, but he was a gifted physical athlete, but he had the brain too. And nobody knew anything about sports psychology then, really, so nobody ever asked him anything. I mean, I wish I had known to ask, but I didn't even know, you know. But he would just, he had that ability to never give up. You know, I mean, and he, like, if you ever watch the archival footage of, which one was it? The German Olympics, what was it? Huh? Munich. Yeah, if you ever watch that race, I mean, he ran a really gutsy race because he took it out pretty, or not early, but earlier than, you know, near the end, and they just finally nipped him off, you know. But I mean, he ran the gutsiest race that I've ever seen. So I don't know what else to say, but he had a great gift, and he used every single one of it. You know, I often thought the guy died in an automobile accident. He had a little MG, and he flipped it over, and it fell on top of him basically. And I always thought how weird and ironic it was that the guy with this humongous ability to breathe died like that, you know, of having his chest crushed because he couldn't breathe, you know. And that was so weird. I mean, it was such an odd ending. But he was a good-hearted guy, and he mentored a lot of young athletes coming up, and he had a lot of guts. I don't know whether that, I don't know. Does that answer anything that you said?
It wasn't about winning or losing, it was about guts. And
Yeah.
he gave himself a gut
Yeah.
punch.
Yeah, and he, when he was in high school, I mean, he was too small to play football. And football is king in Marshfield High School in Coos Bay, Oregon. And so he started running, and nobody could outrun him. I mean, he just ran and ran and ran, and so he developed himself early. But he was too small to play football, so he didn't. Other questions? Yeah.
In some of these like great athletes like Steve Prefontaine or like Tiger Woods, where they're known for their mental toughness, did they always have that, or did they develop it, or how did that, like, can you develop it, or is it something?
Yes, you absolutely can develop it. That's the thing about this book. It teaches you how to do it if you want to learn how to do it. And you have to practice this stuff. It's like, you know, I can do a session with somebody and you know, teach them how to do all this stuff, and they come back a month later and say, oh, that didn't work. I said, well, did you do this and this and this? Did you practice this? Well, no. I mean, it's just like physical practice. We have to mentally practice. In practice, practice mentally, you know. That's when it works, because you're changing a habit. There was something that I wanted to speak to about what you said. Ask it again.
Like the athletes, like they're known for their mental toughness. I'm not sure if they really trained in that or if it was all just inherent in how.
Thank you. The Tiger Woods thing. There's a really great book that's probably not in print anymore, but you can probably find it at Amazon, called Think Like Tiger. And for those golfers out there, you know, it's a wonderful book to read, but it's really interesting because he really learned how to do that. His mom sent him to the Buddhist temple, and he meditated with the monks. So he learned how to control his mind, basically. His father had him work with actually a psychologist who wasn't a sports psychologist, and taught him how to visualize, and he called it self-hypnosis, but visualization and self-hypnosis are pretty similar. So he taught him how to do that. And then his father, I don't know whether I agree with it or not, but he'd really distract him, you know, playing loud music, or, you know, distract him. That's probably why he gets so angry when somebody in the gallery makes noise, okay? It's triggering his father's stuff, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, he learned to overcome a lot of that. And one of the things about Tiger Woods that's so interesting to me, and I've never talked to the guy. I mean, he has, you know, 15 people thick to get to him. So I don't know that I ever would even meet him. But the thing that's so fascinating is the guy can hit the most horrible shots in the world. He hits them into the gallery. I mean, they're awful. And he gets upset. He gets angry. But there's something that inside of him, he just goes, "Chick," and he refocuses, and he figures out how to get out of that, and he hits a gorgeous shot the next shot, just about always. So he never, I mean, he can get irritated, but he never holds on to that when he's playing. I mean, I don't know what he's like personally. And the thing about making mistakes, and going back to that, is that when you do make a mistake in your game, let it go in the game. You can go back. What I do recommend, you can go back and you can figure out, okay, you can even get mad, you know. Just don't stay mad very long. But you can go back, and the important thing is to analyze what you did right, what you did wrong, and how you would change it and do it differently the next time. Because that helps you reprogram it in your head. That really helps. Other questions? Yeah.
What do you suggest for, say, a baseball or softball player? They have a quick transition from offense to defense.
Mm-hmm.
If they do make a mistake, whether on offense or defensive side, what's like a quick transition to forget? Someone who, could take like a day to forget about a mistake. What's some way that they can forget about it?
How to forget about it. Same thing. I mean, when you're out there on the field, you need to let go of it right then. You know, and this isn't speaking to the transition between offense and defense, but it's like if you make a mistake, you just go, X happens, okay? Just, and you let go of it, and then you refocus. You refocus on the ball. You refocus on breathing. I mean, especially in baseball, when you're standing out in the field or whatever like that, you can do that stuff. You can even do the blinking if you want to before when the transition is happening or whatever, because nobody's looking at you. Yeah. Please. Mm-hmm.
It's almost like if you make a mistake and you pitch and you come back and you're sitting on the bench, you kind of almost rethink about what you did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you would suggest doing, or suggest doing that after the?
You can think about what you did wrong. It's just you don't want to think about it too long to get yourself down in a hole. It's like, okay, if you can be a little analytical about it and think, okay, what did I do wrong? And if you can figure that out, and then you have to think about, okay, how would I fix it? I don't know whether you can find that answer or not, but if you can, that's what you think about. And then you let go of it, and you can actually, if you're sitting in the dugout, you can look down and you can do your blinking. You just blink it, and, nobody knows what you're doing. Well, all your buddies do now. But you just do that and, and stretch a little bit and, and then look over there and look over there. You can do it surreptitiously, but you just need to stop and not do it. And that's how you can sort of get it out of your body, though. The other thing, speaking of baseball, I'm in a sports yoga class. I take it, but one of my friends is the yoga instructor, and practically the whole baseball team is in there. It's really interesting. They love it. I mean, they hated it at first, but it's taught them to find quiet inside, just by a couple of stretches, when they're, and they take it out, not on the field, but, to practice. So it's quite interesting. So that's what they're doing there anyway. Other questions? Yeah.
What would you say is the best way to keep athletes motivated for their long-term goals?
The best way to motivate what?
To keep athletes motivated for their long-term goals.
As a coach? Well, there's the long-term goal, and then there's all these little sub-goals that hopefully that you have to make that long-term goal. As a coach, you can talk about it, individually with them. But if it's the long-term goal of, okay, yes, we want to win the district championship or something, but it's still one game at a time, okay? And so the goals are going to be, what do I want to do better in this game? I mean, you can have the long-term goal, but you really need, and I hear the football, we have a new football coach this year at Oregon, and he's constantly, and he's from out here somewhere, I can't remember where. Anyway, he's constantly saying, you know, one game at a time, one game at a time, one game at a time. And that's really true. That really does work because people come back. I mean, in a team of basketball or football, I mean, they have the X on their back a lot of times, from last year. You can't let that pressure get to you or the team. It's like, well, yes, we expect to go to regionals this year, or we expect to win district this year, but we can't, that's the goal, but what are we doing in this game? And so it has to come back to that, and then it comes back to the individual player of, what are you going to work on, or what are we going to work on for you in this game? That's all that matters, honestly, because that's the staying in the moment part. Even though we're talking about the game in the future tense, it's still that's staying in the moment. It's not being out there, or even at the end of a game, how people start playing more tensely because they don't want to lose. If you're ahead, and and teams have trouble closing it out, or finishing it off, it's because they're thinking about out there winning as opposed to getting the job done and just executing. Because there's a lot to be said for executing the plays and your own play. Doing the techniques and the things that you need to do. You really have to focus on what you're doing and letting go of the mistakes and refocus on what you're doing. That makes any sense? Other questions? Yeah.
What do you have, tips for coaches when their players are afraid to make mistakes, when they're playing like they're afraid to make mistakes instead of trying to succeed? You know what I'm saying? They're afraid to make an error in the field instead of making every play.
Yeah. What happens to them when they make mistakes? You take them out? How many mistakes can they make before they get yanked? Are you baseball also? I don't have a good answer for that. If somebody came to me with that, I guess what I would have them do, any particular position?
Like even as a player, I felt like I sometimes at shortstop would go out and I was afraid to make a mistake off the field instead of just going out there and making plays.
Yeah.
And without, I always had a little string of negativity, I guess.
Uh-huh. So what happens is that when we're afraid of making mistakes, we get tense. And so I guess what I would do would be to go out there and I'd be doing my little breathing exercises, just to relax myself. And when I'm working with somebody, I actually teach them how to breathe out of both places, and then they pick which ones, and it's literally just a little visualization of, and you actually like blowing up a balloon in front, and then you're visualizing just the breath sort of going out in front and out the back. But when you do that, it relaxes you and it gets you more in your body, and you will be less likely to make mistakes, and you'll be more relaxed from doing it. And you're thinking about it instead of making mistakes, which is one of the reasons it works.
Do you think sometimes in the flow of a game when things aren't going right, you miss a few shots, people are too quick to do something technical, it's a technical problem, and start thinking about that instead of just take another shot?
Yeah, I think that's true. It's because the mistakes that we make a lot of times are because we're tense. And then we make a mistake, and then we get more tense, and then we make another mistake, and it's like, and so sometimes it is technique, of course, but a lot of times it's bringing yourself, when you're just in a shoot around, for example, in basketball, you're relaxed, you're just, and it's the same kind of thing when we're playing anything. When it feels like it matters, then we sort of go, eh. And so that's why the breathing is sort of quite important to do that. And just the sort of the physical being a little more relaxed. I don't mean not caring. You can care. It's just and there's always the question of people ask me about, you know, because you have to figure as a coach and figure out the individual athlete, how much is too much psyching them up and how much is not enough psyching them up. You know, so, and some people respond to, yeah, let's go, and other people respond to, okay, I'm ready. You know? So each individual person, you need to figure out what they need, and sometimes in a team, if you're working with your team, you ask them, like some of the questions that I've gotten are in a team setting, okay, when we're not doing well, or if somebody on the team has made a mistake, what do you want us to say to you? And they're all different answers. You know, if you make a mistake, do you want nobody to say, or do you want your teammates not to say anything? Maybe. Maybe you want them just to go, you know, hit you on the shoulder or on the back. It's okay. You know, you'll be fine. Or it's good. Let go. It's good. And, or, you know, what do you want? I mean, you know, it's not always what the other person wants either. In a team, you have to ask each one because it's fascinating. A lot of times there's 4 different answers or 6 different answers. Just leave me alone, you know, or talk to me, or, you know, encourage me. But one of the things about this sports psychology stuff is encouraging ourselves. And one of the things in what I call an athlete protocol, you know, where I work individually with the person on each of these different things. Let's see. Whatever that was, I lost my train of thought. Somebody's cell phone. I have no idea what I was going to say. Let's see here. I don't know. Oh, here it is. I tell people and I teach people how to develop a strong mentor voice. And what that means is inside your head, now the mentor or the voice inside your head is going, you suck. You're never going to be able to do anything. They're going to throw you off this team. I mean, whatever you're saying to yourself. That is not a strong mentor voice, okay? The strong mentor voice is saying, it's okay. Let it go. You are good. You deserve to be here. There's a big one. You deserve to be here. That's the mentor voice. What you would be saying to yourself is, I deserve to be here. And one of the hardest things for athletes coming to college, I call it the freshman syndrome, I don't know what other people call it, is when they were always a great athlete in high school, you know? I mean, they were at the top of their game, and then they get to college, and they're the freshmen, and everybody else is better than them a lot of times. That's hard, you know? And so when I'm working with a team, I coach the team, or I teach the team, I call it, because I'm not the coach, but I teach the team to bring that person in. Even though they're maybe going for your position, we have to create a team chemistry. And so the older, or the seniors or the juniors or whoever, you know, they need to bring those freshmen in and encourage them. I mean, that's what mentoring is. And I think that mentoring is a really important thing for people to do. And so that's one way to build team chemistry and to encourage other people. It's really important. It's part of service, honestly, which is what one of the things is in this university. Yeah.
What if you have a situation like that where the team is united, but those who aren't getting playing time, like you said, if freshmen are coming in, what if they turn that anger towards the coach, and then that starts to rip the team apart? Like the team.
It's affecting the team because of their negativity, you mean?
Yeah.
Are you asking as the coach what you would do, or what as a team member you would do?
As a team member.
I presume that then in the team there's a couple of 2 or 3 team leaders that are strong personalities, maybe. Okay. I would brainstorm with the 3 of them, or if you're one of them, like the 3 of you brainstorm on what to do. I would, talk to the coach and get them to help you to brainstorm, and then eventually, I would imagine it would be the coach's place to work with this player, and if the coach is capable of doing that, to have an attitude adjustment, basically, you know, and learn or to somehow encourage this person or say, you know, you have to change your attitude because it's really affecting us and it's pulling us all down. And it's not to make you wrong, it's just, you know, we need you to be cheering us on. You know, the negativity isn't going to work on this team. See what happens, you know. I don't know what's going to happen. It depends on the person. But that's what I would do.
Has flown by.
Okay.
Some a little bit, so maybe one more question. Is there one other question that?
Yeah.
There we go.
I coach cross country and track at high school level, and I was just wondering, I see like a lot of athletes being like mentally torn apart by injuries. And I know there's also a lot of PTs in the crowd.
I heard the injury part. You have to speak a little louder. I can.
I have a cold too. There's a lot of PTs in the crowd too. I think I remember from the book that you had visualization about healing injuries. Could you just talk on that for a second?
Yes. Yes, there are a lot of physical therapy people in here, right? Majors and stuff. Yeah. There is a section in the book about healing injury, but what I would suggest, and when you're working with people, you can have them do little mini visualizations, and if it's a muscle tear, for example, you can imagine, you can just have them for 15 seconds when you're working on it. They can imagine either the muscle fibers, if they're too tight. Well, let's say a muscle tear, or some sort of tear. You have them visualize all the little fibers reconnecting. And they see that in their mind, and they're reconnecting, and then they're smoothing out, and they're flexible. You can say little things like that. You can teach them how to visualize themselves. Or for some people who can't see things, if they're not real visual, you tell them to just feel the warmth flowing in that muscle, or feel the warmth, even though they can't probably feel it. But I mean, imagine feeling that warmth in the muscle or in the tendon or in the ligament or whatever, and how supple it is and how strong it is and how flexible it is. I mean, whatever is appropriate for the particular piece. If you're doing a broken bone or a stress fracture, then you literally have the person visualize wherever, especially if they've seen the x-ray. That's the worst thing, because they're constantly seeing that x-ray of the break or the line on the stress fracture. You have them visualize the white bone just growing together and getting really strong and just stronger and stronger and stronger. And you just, when you're working on them, you teach them to do that. And you can just give them a little mini visualization to do when they're at home. One time I worked with somebody who had a stress fracture and it never healed. It was like 6 months. And she worked in a doctor's office. And she was a runner, and I said, well, did you see the x-ray? And she said, yes. And she described it perfectly to me, and that's what she kept seeing. And so I said, okay, you have to stop seeing that. I want you to visualize this and this and this, and seeing it healed and seeing all, because it was actually a line and then a little teeny sort of point there and then another line. And so I said, I want you to start seeing all this, wherever that gap is, I want you to see it all going together, and it's all just solid white, and it's really strong. She did that, and that thing healed in about 3 weeks. I mean, the doctor that she worked for is going, whoa, it was really amazing. But that's what, when we're seeing things, we have to visualize them healing as opposed to being broken. And that's sort of psychologically for us too. So if there are any of you all that have the book and you want me to sign it, I'll be happy to do that. I thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And get out there and practice this stuff, because it's what you think is what you create in your life. So thanks for coming. Yeah, very much.